Hello once again. We're very sorry for the inconvenience. Apparently, our audience at home has lost Elisa's presentation. So Elisa Napolitano, we're back with you, but we would like you to repeat once again your presentation from the beginning. I'm going to introduce you again. Graduated in sociology with a postgraduate master degree in project design and management, Elisa Napolitano worked in the field of social cooperation as an educator and then a project proposal writer for 5 years. Since 1999, she has been working as a museum educator at the National Archaeological Museum of Naples, where she works in the staff of the Education, Research, Promotion and Enhancement departments, dealing with educational and promotion projects, audience development and monitoring initiatives. In the last 20 years, she specialized both through specific courses and during work experience in the field of museum accessibility for disabled and socially disadvantaged categories. Elisa, would you please tell us how was the video game Father and Son born, how was it developed, and how did it affect the reach out of the National Archaeological Museum of Naples?
Okay, so one more time, thank you for this invitation, also on behalf of the director, Paolo Giulierini. So I'm going to talk about the video game, Father and Son, and I was just briefly presenting the museum, the context in which this video game was born in some years ago, 4 years ago. So these are some of the artifacts, the main artifacts of the museum. The core of the museum is made of both Pompeian collections. These are things coming from Pompeii and the Vesuvian areas, some of our highlights, like Mosaic of Alexander, we are seeing now. But we also have this important collection coming from Rome, inherited by the Bourbon king, the Farnese collection. These are some of the highlights of this collection, and many other things. Above 4,000 artifacts are on display at the museum, and this is just something about the Egyptian and the Magna Graecia collection, just for example. So in this field, we decided, our director decided to try the digital way by producing a video game, Father and Son. And so the creation of the video game could at that time make a significant contribution to the changing of the old perception of the museum itself, which is also an archaeological museum. So one probably of the much more difficult museums to be visited. So, and other objectives were the creation of an emotional bond with the museum, between visitors and the museum. Some of the main works of the month became the access point to experience a parallel story, and this allows to establish a deep relationship between the user and the museum, which is experienced as a portal, allowing to overcome the spatial and temporal barriers and accessing multiple historical contexts and ancient characters. Then, sure, the improvement of the museum visibility, particularly at the international level, as a result of 3 different factors: the articles on the traditional and digital media, reports of the game on the Apple and the Google store, made by the administrators of the platform themselves, and user reviews and the end user reviews. So also increasing the accessibility level of the museum. So the video game represents a simple and unconventional way to approach the museum, thus laying the foundations for the development for a different way of communicating the museum, which therefore becomes more accessible for many categories of users, and at the end, the improvement of the museum's attractiveness in general, thanks to a mechanism for unlocking additional video contents for players who are physically visiting the museums. So, Father and Son, the game has been released on April 2017 for free, both on App Store and Google Play. The game has been developed by 𝗕𝗲𝗴𝗶𝗴𝗶, so an international group of game veterans in cooperation with the Archaeological Museum, acting as a game producer, publisher. This is the first time that an archaeological museum becomes publisher of a video game aimed at reaching a worldwide audience. So Father and Son is two-side scrolling narrative game, so not action game, not a serious game, not an applied game, so an emotional and narrative game that explores the feelings of love, dreams, fear, and the passing of time through the story of an archaeologist and the son he never got to know. Through the game, the main character crosses different historical eras and places, for example, Pompeii during Roman times, ancient Egypt, and the Bourbon period. So what begins as a personal experience becomes like an universal and timeless story, where the present and the past are a set of meaningful choices. Here, I can just tell you about something specific about the game. So the history and the structure, or the narrative, are the two main protagonists. Player will assume the role of Michael, after receiving a letter from his father, who was an archaeologist he never got to know. Michael goes to the man to find out more about his father. So the player will thus be able to explore the streets of Naples, as you can see here. 3 kilometers of the city are reproduced in the game. Here we have some image of the city and also indoor locations. Going through, they can take 5 sketches of famous buildings and sculptures of the cities, 5 in totally. Then the collection of the museum interact with the stories through the ages. So when Michael meets some highlights of the museum, from his point onwards, a journey through the ages begins, from Egypt to ancient Rome. Here we have, for example, a jump back to Egypt, in the ancient Egypt. Here in Pompeii, just the day of the eruption, or the Bourbon Age. So these are some of the highlights of the museum that can permit to pass through the ages thanks to the video game. Another characteristic of the game is that in Father and Son, each player choice will affect the story and lead to different endings. So Michael will interact with different characters and will have to make important decisions that can affect the entire narrative. The aim is to fill in gaps not only about this father life, but also with the characters he meets along the way. And only at the end will Michael be able to rediscover himself thanks to the interaction with characters from the past and the present. So Father and Son can be played every time and everywhere, but it introduces a special physical digital feature. Since visiting the museum and making the check-in, the game automatically will supercharge the experience, unlocking extra features and extra contents. Today, the game is translated in 10 different languages: Italian, English, Chinese, Russian, French, Portuguese, German, and Arabic, and in Neapolitan, the dialect spoken in Naples. A local attractiveness choose as from global to a local dimension. So father and son have been conceived a new storytelling formula, namely a new way of touring the museum, its story and its collection. Its particular features are the narrative structures, which aim at engaging potential visitors. Its elegant and sophisticated graphics made in the original pictures in water paint, and with more than 30 minutes of original music composed and recorded specifically for the video game. These are some of the results of the video game, the impact of the video game. Here we can see the total downloads all over the world in 97 countries all over the world. Over 700 articles were written about the video game. This is the score on the App Store, and this is the score on Google Play. And this is the total number of people who check in the museum after playing and the video game. Here we can see that we have mostly male people downloading the game and playing the game, and here mostly people over 35 playing and downloading the game. And so here just some information about the main countries where the video game has been downloaded in the past four years. So for the future, the museum has new projects. This new project includes a second father and son, so sequel. Here we can see just a few images of the sequel, new characters, some more Egypt, and here a special indoor view of the museum during the Second World War, inspired to real pictures we have in our archive, photographic archive. And we also would like to develop an original version of the famous game Minecraft, renamed Minecraft. So in general, I think that this video game is the sign that much has already changed in the museum education. First of all, museums are called upon to invest in audience development, increase and diversification of audiences in order to disseminate the cultural content. So man has chosen the path of comic book guides for children. The museum produces documentaries and emotional videos, short films, for example. So didactics must be designed for society because a museum has a social and cultural mission, and society is not homogeneous. So if you want to communicate with different audiences, we will have to use different languages. And it doesn't mean to neglect the scientific content, but using the right codes. If you have just 1 minute more, I would like to show you the original trailer of the video game. And then if you have any question, I'm here. Okay, I try.
Elisa.
Sì.
Sì, I believe we're not seeing the demo, and we're also a little bit running late on our schedule. I think the presentation was great, and the video game looks very artistic. Thank you very much for being with us. I think we can go on with Paola Dubini. Thank you, Lisa Napolitano, for being with us. Goodbye. We are here with Paola Dubini, who is professor and teaches management at Bocconi University and is a visiting professor at the IMT in Lucca. She participated in the design group that created Bocconi's 𝗂𝐸𝐸, the Bachelor in Economics and Management in Arts, Culture and Communication, which she directed for the past years. She researches the conditions of sustainability of cultural organizations and cultural policies. She coordinates the ASVIS Culture Group for Sustainable Development and sits on the board of various cultural organizations such as SIAE, Mantua's Palazzo Ducale, and Mondadori Egea Foundation. She's the president of the Triennale CRT Theatre and vice president of Milan's Museum of Science and Technology. Paola, why is it crucial to overcome the counter-positioning of digital and physical? What does this imply for a cultural organization and institution?
First of all, thank you for inviting me. Good morning, everybody. I think that basically to answer your question, it's evident that our life is simultaneously physical, live, and digital, and therefore inevitably, as cultural organizations are part of society and actually wish to be and act as transformative actors for society, they should not only incorporate digital, and then I'll build on it, in their strategies, processes, and practices, but also somehow to help us guide through this and through a more, I would say, responsible way of addressing our relationship with technology. So for me, the first point is that there is no such thing as a juxtaposition between the physical industries, the live part and the digital part, even though we know that in terms of structuring of processes, competencies, and structures of costs and revenues, there are huge differences from the three, among the three. And that some cultural organizations, we heard a beautiful exception from the Man Museum that has been developing multimedia strategies and multi-platform strategies for quite a few years now. Particularly heritage organizations and more traditional organizations have difficulties in incorporating this. I think that part of it has to do with identity. I mean, if you consider yourself as an institution, first of all, related with preservation, that's what you think you're doing as a major part, and then everything else comes after. Part of it, of course, has to do with competencies, and part of it has to do with the fact that, to some extent, these organizations need and want to stabilize hypes. Because we know that while I say that digitalization and the digital dimension of social life is part of our daily life, it is also true that there is also a little bit of hype, no? As you know, one of the things that makes me wonder is this idea of all the fuzz about NFT and contemporary art, or issues like the CryptoKitties and all these kind of things. Okay, it's part of what is happening. So, to me, particularly with respect to the possibility to use technologies, and I was thinking to NFTs in particular, to me, of course, they are potentially very useful elements for cultural organizations because, first of all, they open up the possibility to manage several digital channels, controlling for the unity of content also in the digital format, which is something that is at times very problematic, particularly with new productions. It is a way to manage some markets that somehow are a little bit on the fringe of market. I'm thinking to peer-to-peer markets, for instance. In some instances, it is very useful to have something that allows you to control for digital scarcity, allows you to establish digital property, and allows you simultaneously for interoperability. I mean, these are three very important features. And it works beautifully for tracking where the content goes. So I would like to think of it as an asset for cultural organizations that has to be used precisely for this reason. I don't know if you have been following the issue about 𝗕𝗲𝘆 and being. I personally think that the interesting thing is not so much the fact that there is an NFT that is associated to 𝗕𝗲𝘆, but who keeps the right and the possibility to open up multiple digital markets around the single intellectual property. So for me, what we are going to see is a growth in these experiments in applying this type of technology, not only in the arts and in video games, where I fully understand why it started, but also in heritage, but also in many settings in which tracking and following the right is very difficult. I'm thinking about live music. I'm thinking about audiovisual products. So I really look forward to this development. And all the markets that develop around exchanges of different features associated with cultural products. And for me, this is going to be very interesting and challenging, not only for private companies, but also in their relationship with big rights holder. I'm thinking museums, governments, and these kind of things.
Thank you very much, Paola. Thank you for being with us. We're going to pass the microphone on to 𝗕𝗏𝗔 Sciacchitano. 𝗕𝗏𝗔 serves in the cabinet of the Italian Minister of Culture. She has extensive experience in European policies and research on culture, heritage, and landscape, with a focus on social values, creative economy, and regenerative management. Between 2014 and 2020, she contributed to the shaping of the EU policy on cultural heritage in general and to the European Year of Cultural Heritage 2018 as Chief Scientific Advisor. She previously held the positions of Head of Unit for International Relations and Research in the Italian Ministry for Cultural Heritage. She's an architect and holds a PhD in Historical Buildings Survey and a master's degree in European Studies and International Negotiations. 𝗕𝗏𝗔, how can the European and global international cultural cooperation help innovation to generate positive social impacts?
Thanks for your kind invitation to share thoughts, also to learn from you. And I will draw immediately from, I draw immediately the inspiration from my previous intervention. It is very clear that the digital, well, digital is a kind of heterogeneous, a word that represents several concepts and ideas, and but it is, I think that what characterizes the digital is that it's an enabling factor for mankind. It's not a tool. We should change our mindset, and it was very clear from the previous presentation. Digital, it's not something that we use to reproduce what we were doing before and just turn it into digital. Digitization, yes, of course, it's important, but the way you do things is completely different. And it is transforming the way the cultural and creative sector is producing culture. It is transforming mankind in the way we share, think, act, and discuss our ideas and share our knowledge. It means that probably its power has not been yet deeply understood. And in particular, it's enabling power really to create and generate benefits. So I think that we have two unexploited factors for mankind. One is culture, which is only recently recognized as an enabling factor for sustainability and sustainable development. We have the recent important declaration adopted in Rome at the end of July under the Italian presidency of G20, really stating that culture plays a transformative role for society, and in particular for the recovery of our societies following the pandemic, affected by the pandemic, not only for its intrinsic value, for the capacity, the importance that the fact that culture represents, of course, an important economic driver in itself, being a source of jobs and income. It generates spillovers in the wider economy. But what really generates the spillovers in the economy is the fact that culture is a social production. And so it's something that it really has an impact on social innovation. But there's an if. The cultural participation rates are still low. We all still think in terms of urban-dominated culture. We haven't yet, we still think in terms of access and participation, in terms of eliminating barriers. It means that there is somewhere us and them. We are already progressed a lot, and European institutions have contributed, and also this culture declaration is contributing to really put culture at the heart of the social regeneration, thinking in a more holistic way. The key is participation. The key is how to promote participation, because without participation, people cannot access to culture, and therefore the benefits, the social, economic, and environmental benefits will not really have an impact on the society. But when now we had digital aspects to this important concept, which has been recently shaped, we understand that we add another layer of complexity. And this something was said before. If we do not address the digital divide, how can we really allow mankind to use the digital, let's say, not tools, the digital factors, to widely participate and benefit and generate culture? If we do not address, for instance, and it was very clear in the reflection at the G20, in the G20 Forum, where we have countries really from all over the globe, cultural diversity. Again, we still produce and represent our culture, and it's very difficult to include different views and approaches, or to give equal dignity to different diverse cultures. Creating a safe and digital ecosystem. I think this is the role of cultural institutions and our governments, which are still shaped in the which are still have the roles and responsibility that belong to the previous century, no? But this is really a crucial role, because you need to create a context where cultural creators and people could really benefit from the advantages that culture brings to the society. And at the same time, it was very also clear in the previous presentation, cultural and creative actors need to rethink themselves to play this role in the society. And this means acquiring new competencies, new skills, including the digital skills, but also the social skills that are needed to put all those things together in a coherent way.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Erminia. We're going to pass the word on to Franco Lawesi. Franco Lawesi, a graduate in information sciences, has 30 years of experience in the field of new technologies and startups, which began in the 90s in Mountain View, California, where he founded his first artificial intelligence company. He is engaged in a number of activities on the current and future implications of the digital evolution. His latest novel, written with 𝗂𝗈, is Wired. He is the son of the well-known Piacenza painter Cinello. With John Blenn, in 2015, he founded the startup Cinello. Their adventure combines the skills developed in the digital field in 30 years of career between Silicon Valley and some of the most important multinational enterprises, and the passion for art and the Italian historical artistic heritage, an identity element of our country and an asset to be enhanced. Please, Mr. Lawesi, why was the DAO, would you please tell us, why was the DAO technology invented? How does it work? How does it replace a physical masterpiece, such a painting by Michelangelo?
Thanks, Luisa. I try to answer to all your questions. Starting from the purposes, when we began this project, we are at the beginning of 2015, so a little time ago. And our goal, our objective was to create a different business model, or if you want, a different revenue stream to allow our museums, mainly, because we started from Italy, to have the revenues enough to maintain themselves. As you know, there are a lot of museums in Italy that cannot break even in terms of budget, and that means that they are under risk all the time, because if you don't have the money to feed them, they are going to close. And this is not exactly where the culture deserves, and at least doesn't allow the culture to be free, as it should be, as everybody of us knows. So we wanted to simulate, because at the end of the day, we didn't create anything. Actually, we didn't want to invent anything. We just wanted to develop a system that was able to represent and to implement exactly the same rules of the art market. So we started from the multiples, as were known, currently known, or serigraphies, if you want, or lithographies. And we wanted to create a system that was capable to guarantee the uniqueness of each artwork, even in the digital environment. So our system does exactly the same, these things, because as we are technical IT guys, and we know that the reason why we have invented file, for instance, and we have invented file because there was a possibility to replicate them, to copy them without having at the end of the process exactly the same file. Again, because a computer must communicate and that share all the same things. So this was not compatible with the rules of art. So we tried to reverse engineering the fact of the files, giving to the files a kind of physicity that was related. In our case, this is the patent we have developed after that. Cinello has a patent in Italy, in Europe, and in the US now. And the technology was to link the file to the device where the file is showed, or other unique quantities, like, for instance, geographical latitude and position. Meaning that if you don't have these couple of things, you cannot have the painting. This allows us to say that you cannot replicate any kind of file, because if you stole it, for instance, and you try to show it in a different device, you cannot do that, because our system doesn't allow that. So at the end of this, we have created a system that allows our museums to create copies, authenticated and certified, of all the main masterpieces that are currently owned by our museums. And this clearly creates a new market in terms of exhibition, because we can create exhibition everywhere in the world in an eco and environment compatibility, because we don't move anything, we just move bit, if you want, okay? And allows us to propose to some few lucky guys the possibility to have in their homes, on their premises, to have these masterpieces that are not exactly painted. These are our dreams, our iconic description of what is art and what is represented, and is the right reason why all the people is still coming in Italy to have a look of them. From now on, in every place in the world, you can have the same representation. In fact, Tondodoni wasn't NFT. We are not using NFT. We are dear to the NFT as a place where you can also certify and create the certificate, but it's not related to the file, because the file is protected by our system. So there's no way, as in the NFT, to have a copy of the file. Everybody can have it, because, again, we are exactly following, we are in a continuum. We didn't want to be a breach in the history of art. We want just to follow that and to bring this art, our art, in the digital world. This doesn't mean that with new technologies will come out different arts, Actually, we hope that happens. Because all the time that you have a way to communicate something to say, there's potentially an art that is coming out, because that's the way it works. So in the digital world, there's another characteristic that's very important, because these works are accessible everywhere in the world. You don't need any kind of association. So our vision in this respect is that we are moving to the digital world. It's not a choice anymore, okay? Because in our opinion, humanity is using digital to take off the most of material things that we are depending upon. And if you think about, this is a kind of attitude that humanity has preserved since the beginning, because we started with gold in our pocket in terms of money. Now we are just bit in our pocket, but doesn't mean that the value is decreased or something else. We are just changed the material things. We took actually off the material, but we keep the concept. Exactly what Cinello is doing for the artworks. We are taking away the material, the physicity, but we are keeping the artworks. That is the most important thing. In the past, artists were using material in order to create artworks. Okay. Now there's a new material that is digital, that is material. Actually, under any kind of view, actually, for the artist, is the most fantastic and fabulous material they could imagine. As I said, I'm a son of a painter. The most important problem of a painter is to have his painting attached, for instance, to the support they decided to use. They want to be sure that the colors, their colors, not some colors, their colors will stay in the same situation, and they will reflect it. And if you think about digital, this is perfect to them. There's no matter of corruption. There's no matter of changes in every way, because we are talking about things that are not related to the material. And as you know, each material things, the destiny of each material things in this world is to disappear. I'm sorry, but sooner or later, the 𝗕𝗏𝘆 will disappear for some reason. We don't know. There was also Notre Dame in Paris. There's no more. It's a larger, big letter of a painting, because this is the destiny of the things of this world. That's the reason why humanity is trying to use digital to take off again all the material things that we can, because this will sort out a lot of problems, because we have, as humanity, a lot of problems keep on increasing in the same space, Or you enlarge the space, or you restrict the person that you want to put in, okay? So I don't know if I can explain, but these were the basic reasons why we decided to implement our system. And again, we are not trying, because we moved from the IT world, IT guys, as I am, are used to analyze a system, a situation, a process, without changing it, but creating a mathematical model that can run on a computer. And then once in this computer, we want to improve it. But we do not change. We haven't created a different art with Cinello. We just have followed the story of art. And that's the reason why our museums, for our happiness, because this is a movement. It's not a matter of a company like Cinello that does something. It's a kind of new awareness that has to come, because we are, again, living of the material we can, and we want to keep our artworks for us forever. And that's the reason why Cinello exists.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Franco Lawesi. Now we're going to finalize today's event and the third roundtable with Domenico Quaranta. Domenico is an art critic, curator, and teacher interested in the ways in which the ongoing technological changes affect contemporary artistic practices. His texts have appeared in numerous magazines, newspapers, books, and catalogs. He's the author of, among other things, of Beyond New Media Art, and editor of several volumes, including Game Scenes, Art in the Age of Video Games. Since 2005, he has curated several exhibitions, including Collect the 𝗕𝗏𝗶𝗶𝗏 World, The Artist as Archivist in the Internet Age, Syphoria, and Hyperemployment. He is a professor of interactive systems and a co-founder of the Link Art Center. Domenico, we would like to know, how do you think that the current state of the blockchain and the NFTs market could support the economic development of arts and culture? How should they evolve to make this impact more effective?
Thank you very much, Luisa, for inviting me for this beautiful presentation and also for your question. I will come to it in a minute, but I think it may be useful to add a couple of things about my background to make you understand from which background comes my answer. So I don't know if I deserve to sit at this table, but if I do, it's probably for two reasons. Because I've been working in the field of art and technology for about 20 years as a teacher, writer, and curator, and because I wrote this book, which came out in May 2021. And it's a book, the title is Surfing 𝗏𝗏𝘶, Art, Blockchain, and NFTs. So it's a book that tries to address this acceleration in the field of the relationship between art and blockchain that we have seen along the last months. Actually, my entry point to this art and technology thing was early net art in the early 2000s. And I think if you know what I'm talking about, you probably can understand both what gets me aroused when it comes to NFTs, but also what gets me scared about it. Because in the late 90s, early 2000s, net art was a space that had really strong similarities with what is happening now. It was a space where artists were looking for a relationship with an audience without any kind of intermediation. They could just upload a work and get in touch with everybody in the world. And this is one of the things that is usually stressed when talking about NFTs. It was a territory where there was not an art world active, the internet, I mean, and so it was a space where new relationships could be designed and developed without any hierarchy and so on. And this, it's the part of the history that repeats itself in a way, no? But at the same time, there are strong differences between the two spaces and the two communities, and are these differences that matter and that make me scared. One of the things that gets me more worried is probably the fact that to sum it up with a short sentence that may be effective and maybe also simplify the subject, crypto money govern the crypto space. No, it's not just friendship, it's not just relationships. It's also what you have in your wallet. That's what counts in the end. No, in terms of money, in terms of tokens, in terms of participation to decentralized autonomous organizations. And this is something that probably won't change in the future, but that has to be taken into account because it's part of the ethos of this emerging community. So I didn't have any experience of NFTs before the fall of 2000. As a curator, I was involved in a couple of blockchain-related projects. I'm, for example, part of the board of 𝗕𝗲𝗆, which is an artist-run crypto coin started by Jonas Lund, which works as a kind of decentralized autonomous organization. Basically, the project is outsourcing to a board of directors that can be joined by any collector, professional that works with the artist. It's outsourcing his own creativity, no? But I started getting interested in NFTs in the fall of 2000s, and that was the moment in which I started keeping a research file, collecting articles, watching at artists, and so on. And then there was this acceleration, and I realized that the only way for me to keep up was probably to write a book, which is not a ready-made answer to the questions that it raises, but it's really the way to a possible, open, debatable answer. So this to make you understand why the reasons beyond the answer that I have for Luisa's question, which is which can be the contribution of the crypto space to the improvement of the arts and culture from an economic point of view. I think that the crypto space already proved in a very effective way to be able to support the development of the arts and culture. I think I'm running out of time as usually, but I guess I still have 5 minutes or so, no? Okay. One example are benefit auctions. Many benefit auctions have been run along the last months, and some of them were really impressive in the amount of money that was given to a single organization. For example, one American platform foundation strategically tried to develop benefit auctions in order to show that the NFT space is not just collecting, but can also have an effect on social and cultural dynamics. So probably the most spectacular sale was the sale of this digital version of a legal document that was put on auction by Edward Snowden. It's the image that you have on the cover of the book. Edward Snowden was not selling this file to get money for himself, but it was doing it to get funds for the Freedom of the Press Foundation. And in that case, as in many others, the crypto community proved to be very fast and very effective in joining forces in order to support a meaningful cultural cause. An organization basically came out of nothing and put together the millions of dollars in Ethereum in order to give a proper funding to the Freedom of the Press Foundation. And since then, other organizations worked in a similar way. For example, on Foundation, money were withdrawn for the Tor project, for UC Berkeley made another important auction. And outside of Foundation, you may know the case of Tim Berners-Lee, who sold a depiction of the original code of the World Wide Web and gave the money for charity. So this is one way, and it's strongly related to the way the crypto community is able to organize through the decentralized autonomous organizations. And then, of course, you have initiatives such as the one arranged by Cinello for different museums, some museums that are tokenizing physical artworks they have on their collections in order to raise certain monies and so on. So this is what I see it's happening, and it's definitely positive to see. At the same time, I think a warning should be done about NFTs. They may be very effective, but we don't have to forget their origin in a way, their background. It's not a technological solutions developed for the arts. It's a financial innovation that proved to be very effective for the sale of collectibles, but still is coming from another background. And what I saw also today in the presentation implementations of MOCDA and other situations, is the increasing involvement of professionals and people coming from the art field that can help not just criticizing from outside, as usually I do, but also improving from inside this technology and driving it in a certain direction. I think that there are plenty of things that should be done on the level of smart contracts, for example, on the level of metadata, on the level of the storage system that may be centralized, like in the case of Cinello, or peer-to-peer and decentralized, like 𝗕𝗏𝘗𝑆, but are often the less secure and more tamperable part of the system, and so we have to take attention about it. Also because I think the original, and here I'm about to close, in the original field of NFTs, everybody in the end agrees that what's important is not the digital file that you are tokenizing. What's important is the token. You may lose completely your artwork, but you will always be the owner of the token. And this is not something that's really fitting to art and to the ethos of art professionals. So I think I can stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Domenico. Thank you, everyone, for being with us, from watching us from home. I would like to make just a small announcement. As we said, we are in the framework of Milan Design Week, il Salone del Mobile. This year, it took place in September. Usually, it takes place in April. Next year, hopefully, it will take place in April. And in April 2022, together with Milano 5 Vie, I will be curating the first, and so far only, NFT art show in between art and design for Salone del Mobile. Thank you for being with us and stay tuned.